Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review for Tet's Pink. Thank you. Okay. This is the latest release from longtime electronic music producer Kieran Hebden, aka Four Tet, who has spent a good chunk of this year sporadically releasing tracks on 12-inch singles off of his self-started record label Text Records. And this thing, Pink, is pretty much a compilation of those released tracks. Now, at this point in his career, Four Tet has kind of abandoned the really instrumentally lush and layered electroacoustic instrumentals that make albums like Rounds, you know, his album Rounds, so celebrated. I don't mean to make that sound bitter, because I actually, like the direction that he's been heading in, especially on his last full-length album, There Is Lovin' You, which was one of my favorite electronic music albums of 2010. And there are references to his old self on this album, especially on the last track, She Only Likes to Fight, which is a really pretty track and has a post-rock-esque instrumental escalation. But for the most part these days, Four Tet has been embracing the hypnotic, repetitive sounds of house music. But his angle when it comes to house music, tech house, micro house, is to just create some really subtle sounds. Very pretty and nicely executed vocal samples as well, examples from There Is Lovin' You, Love Cry, and the opening track as well. And that mix of house music structure and repetition, together with his usual experimentation, his search for some interesting sounds, is here on Pink. I would actually say on this compilation some of Four Tet's most textured beats ever are on this thing. It starts right from the get-go on the track Locked, which has some really nice hand percussion in the beat. There's just a lot of interesting sounds going on. I mean, that is just really what makes a lot of these tracks just really nice quality and unique sounds. What does kind of bug me about this track, and a lot of tracks on this compilation though, is that nothing is introduced or built upon or just sort of added to a track all that subtly, or with a delicate hand. You have a lot of hard ins and outs. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it does kind of bring a robotic quality to Four Tet's production that I wasn't totally in love with. I'm used to him really just kind of sequencing things or introducing things with, I don't know, a bit more flair. And I wouldn't say it's a complete lack of effort or anything like that, because once certain sounds start in these tracks, Four Tet does work to kind of keep a nice progression going, like the pops and clicks that fill the beat on the track Jupiters, or the rolling, just strangely sequenced hi-hats on the track 128 Harps, and of course the harp sound on that track as well is beautiful. The last track on here, Pinnacles, though, is easily my favorite. Has an amazing rush of just sounds and instrumentation that just kind of hops in every so often when these jazzy piano chords kind of arise in the track. It's the only song here that to me really references that older side of Four Tet, where you are hearing a lot of acoustic instrumentation and it sounds like it's kind of happening live. It's easily the most detailed track on the album, but a lot of other tracks on here kind of underwhelm me because of their lack of detail. I just don't find them to be as engaging. Good beats and grooves, but, because the way some of these tracks move tends to be a little mundane for me sometimes, and maybe obvious as well, because the execution of some of these tracks can kind of deflate my excitement for them pretty fast, like on Icoras or Lion or Pyramid. The rest of the tracks on here though are a feast. I even really like the 11-minute track Peace for Earth, which is kind of a very long, vast, ambient synthesizer piece, which was kind of breathtaking in its simplicity. I didn't really come away loving this compilation. I just felt like some tracks were really not as stimulating as others. This is definitely a must listen for Four Tet fans, and even worth checking out for people who may just be curious about his stuff, because while it wasn't mind-blowing, it certainly was easy to get into and could be a nice starter for some people. I'm feeling a decent to strong 7 on this thing, What did you guys think of it? If you've given it a listen, did you love it? Hate it? Why? Remember, the good comment, the great rate, but only the strong subscribe. Anthony Fantano, Four Tet, forever.